Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Jared Graybeal. Jared is a NASM-certified personal trainer, fitness nutrition specialist, and behavioral change specialist. He's also the founder of two companies, Superfit Foods, a healthy subscription-based meal prep company, and E3, a business consulting and marketing agency. He's the author of a new book called The Self-Help Book, 6 Practical Ways to Never Stop Growing. This book presents 6 ways to help business leaders live a life of constant growth while avoiding stagnation or burnout. This is an incredibly important topic, especially with what we've gone through over the past year. So I'm excited to have him on the show to talk about it. So Jared, welcome to the show.
John, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, it's good to have you. And this is a really important topic. I've been talking about it a lot over the past year and a half. So, first of all, I want to get a little bit about your background. And you have a very interesting background. So you have a big background in health and fitness, right? Being a certified trainer, CrossFit guy, CrossFit trainer, and also business startup. So how did you, tell us about your background and how you got involved with helping people, whether it's through the business side of it or health and fitness side of it?
Yeah. So I'll try to sum up what would take maybe days,
Right.
in maybe 3 to 4 minutes. So I started selling weed at 11 years old and did that well, oddly enough, at a young age. And by the time I was 17, I had moved out of my dad's place. I was raised by my dad, single dad, a couple of us brothers, and moved out at 16. At 17, got caught and with a lot. And so got charged with felony possession, distribution, all that stuff. Got charged as an adult. And around the time I was 18, they actually prosecuted me right after my senior year in high school. I spent the summer after my senior year in high school in jail. And in jail was really where I found my calling for the fitness industry in itself. After really obviously learning that I couldn't sell weed for the rest of my life, which ironically enough now is
now you probably could, yeah.
You could in like 33 states right now.
Right.
And so I had to pivot clearly. And in jail, I was inspired to become a personal trainer because my second favorite passion was fitness. And that became my first favorite passion. So when I got out, I was on house arrest for 2 years, but throughout that time I went to school and I became a trainer and I got a job at Gold's Gym and I began doing sales and got to transition to the training field and then eventually became a general manager and did that for about 6 years. Pursued an opportunity to open a gym in 2015 and that failed before it even started. The investor backed out, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And basically over 2-3 months, I did one-on-one training at a different Gold's Gym. And that's when the opportunity to start Superfit Foods presented itself. And I figured, at the time I was a bodybuilder, I'm a nutrition specialist. I'm really, really passionate about encouraging people, but empowering them to get the results that they want. It's really fantastic watching people transform their physical life and everything else that can happen from that. So in May of 2015, started Superfit Foods with that inspiration, and that's kind of the birth of that opportunity.
That's great. So you have like an entrepreneurial bug about you, whether it's trying to start a gym, getting into subscription food business, and now into consulting. So where did that come from? Where did that bug for starting businesses come from?
That's a great question, John. And I don't really subscribe to the idea that people are born for this necessarily. I'm more or less an environmental kind of person. Like I think that a lot of our personality and our inspiration comes from where we're from or everything that we consume, whether it be media or our communities. And we grew up really poor. And when I say poor, we were the poor kids in the poor neighborhood. The reason why I know that, and it's kind of the cliche startup story,
right.
But the reason why I know that is because we grew up in a pretty low income neighborhood, but we were, me and my brother and my dad, we had less than them. Like they had Nikes going to school, the first day of the new school year, and we didn't. We were drawing Nikes on our socks. And so I think my entrepreneurial bug or spirit came from a desire to fit in, honestly. I just wanted to be like everyone else. and I was smaller than everyone else. Like I had a stunted growth until like my junior year of high school. And I think I write about that in the book. I grew 7 inches in one year, and that's a whole other story. Um, but I just wanted to fit in, man. And the only way to do that was to have some money. And so I thought a lot about money from maybe the age 10 or 11 until, now, I guess you could say. I don't think too much about it now, but so my entrepreneurial spirit from an early age came from like, how do I fit in? And that was literally, I can remember a couple things. How do I afford the same backpack? Like people had
Mm.
JanSport backpacks.
Yeah. Yeah. Back then.
Mm,
Yeah.
We didn't have any name brand backpack. And you got picked on for that. And then how do I afford pizza at lunch? Because we had free lunch when
Yeah.
my friends got to have like a la carte.
Yeah.
Um, and a la carte, you had to have money in your account. And so at a very early age, those are the basic needs that I had. And I do remember my first time realizing that I could turn a profit from weed. The school we went to was a big skateboarder school, and smoking weed was kind of common for 11, 12, 13-year olds. Again, we're kind of in the hood. So um, I remember having 20 bucks that I saved up, and I bought a bag of weed, and four friends wanted $5 worth. And I was like, well, if I give these four friends this amount, I can have this much for myself. And so one weekend I was able to make my money back and have my own weed.
Mm.
And another weekend I did the same thing with $35, and I sold like nine $5 bags and kept one for myself. And now I have $10 cash, free weed, and I helped out nine people. And I realized that, wow, when I buy up more, I can sell them some, not rip them off. I'm giving them what they would have gotten with $5 anywhere else. And then so I realized, at the time, how capitalism
Yeah.
works.
You're getting an MBA in high school.
Yeah, middle school. So,
Oh, jeez.
or uh,
Right.
so that's kind of how it all started for me. And then it became, I was good at skateboarding, so I got sponsored, and I would get free stuff, and I would flip that at school. Sometimes I would get discounts on bigger stuff, and I'd buy it and flip it at school. And so, of course, in the background, I'm still selling weed and growing that business. So there was always arbitrage going on my end, and I didn't really realize it. And so, of course, at 17, I got arrested, and so all that kind of got suppressed
Right.
until I got in the fitness industry and everything that I had learned in terms of sales and customer service. Because there's a lot of customer service involved in selling weed. There's a lot of competition back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
So I had to be on time, had to be accurate, So anyways, that's what got me into it.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. You got it. You learned cash flow at an early age. Yeah.
Yeah, I was paying my own bills. I mean, bought my own first car, got my own first apartment, right? So like at 16, I had, a balance sheet and P&L. So
That's wild. That's wild. That's crazy. So let's talk about your book. I mean, this is really interesting because I really think it's important right now. Is the self-help book, 6 Practical Ways to Never Stop Growing. So tell us about the book and why you wrote it.
So the book was inspired by a separate book inspiration. So from, again, a young age, I think I've always had this desire to be known or to be remembered. And I know that a lot of people share that, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people want to be remembered. And I read a quote by Benjamin Franklin when I was young, that I'll paraphrase it, but it basically said, if you want to be remembered, you either have to do things worth remembering
Mm-hmm.
or write things worth
Worth
reading.
reading. Yeah, I love that quote.
And I'm not going to be the next Red Bull athlete, you know what I mean? Jumping out of a spaceship or whatever. So I figured, one day I'll write a book, but I did struggle a lot in English and literature. And when I say struggle, I was like a C grade student where math and all that stuff was A plus. So I never really thought that I would write a book, honestly. But maybe 5-6 years ago, a buddy of mine asked me to write a blog for his Christian blog website. And I committed to it. When you're inspired by God, things are a little different. So I
Yes.
said, yeah, I'll do that for you. And it ended up being like a big hit on his blog site. Everyone loved it, the way that I wrote and stuff like that. So that was encouraging for me. Then shortly afterwards, one of our leaders at the church that I was a leader at for a period of time asked me to lead a group, and the group had to have like a curriculum. So I designed a curriculum. He was like, you're going to lead a Christian group around entrepreneurship and leadership. And I called it Taming the Lion.
Mm.
And so based off a quote that I read a long time ago that basically says everyone looks at entrepreneurs like a guy riding a lion, and they say, man, that guy's really cool. Look at this guy on a
Yeah.
lion.
Yeah.
Well, the guy sitting on the lion is like, man, how the hell did I get on here? And how do I get off without getting eaten?
It's so true.
And I read that quote and I'm like, that is my life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I led a group called Taming the Lion, and I started writing a book around this content. But I guess you could say writer's block, really probably call it insecurity, because I had never written a book and I never considered myself to be a great writer. So I put that on the back burner. Fast forward about a year, I blog a lot, right? And blogs are way less committal, like
Right.
not a lot
Right.
of responsibility, short form. And I usually read them on my podcast, and my podcast teachings are about 10, 15 minutes long. So eventually I wrote a blog called 6 Ways to Never Stop Growing. And it ended up being way too long
Mm.
because I was in it, but it was too short to be a book. And so I remember reading the blog to myself and saying, man, I could double down on this and publish this as my first book, because I left a lot on the table. And so basically that was it. It was like, well, I tried Taming the Lion, and maybe I should get some confidence under my belt before I revisit that. This is already written, and it was like
Yeah.
20,000 words at the time, like way too long for a blog. So I said, let me revisit this. Let me fill in the blanks, add some stories and some context, submit it to a publisher and see if they like it, and then see where that takes me. And I did that early last year, and then
Nice.
uh, came across a publishing agency that I liked working with, and here we are.
That's exciting. That's really cool. Well, it's funny because my next book coming out was actually a blog post that kind of went crazy as well. So it was one that just went viral, and, it's got spread all over the world. And I thought, well, maybe I should probably add to that and finish it and,
Yeah,
tell more stories and plug more stories into it. And 2 years later, now it's a book. But
that's all. That's
yeah,
all.
so I think I really do encourage, those business leaders listening here, if you have an expertise, I mean, write about it. I mean, so it's so easy to blog nowadays. And if you don't even have to have your own website, you can do it on LinkedIn. If you can write,
Yeah.
short form. And as you continue to write, you develop these ideas, and who knows, it could turn into a book. It could turn into something different. So I highly encourage people to write what they know about. So, because you never know what it's going to turn into. So that's
Right.
exciting. That's really neat. So this is the first published book then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And let's talk about this. I think one of the things I notice about, I was in corporate America for 22 years, and now I've been an entrepreneur for 5. And I noticed that many business leaders don't take care of themselves, whether it's physically, spiritually, emotionally. And, there's a lot of pressures that are on top of business leaders, whether you're working in a big company or you're, an entrepreneur. What's so important about taking care of yourself, both physically, spiritually, emotionally? Why is that so important for leaders?
I picture it sort of like as this cup. And as business leaders, we're constantly pouring out. We're pouring out for our staff. We're pouring out for our family. We're pouring out for our stakeholders or our customers, clients, etc. And if we pour out for so long, we're gonna run out.
Right.
And as leaders, we have to constantly be filling our own cup. Um, because prioritizing our own health, whether it be physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, psychological, whatever, that's going to allow us to constantly continue to pour out for, again, our staff, our clients, our family, our up and coming communities, the people that are watching us through social media platforms, etc. Right. And if we never prioritize ourselves, we will run out.
Very
And
true.
when the cup runs out, you've got
Yeah.
nothing. And people, they will find another source. And so if you want to continue to be not only healthy, but relevant, you've got to fill yourself up on a regular basis.
I love that. I love that. So when, in the book, you talk about there's these 2,000 people interviewed, and 69% felt trapped in the same routine, and over 40% were unhappy with their lives because of it. And then, one of the things you say is that many of those 40% are unwilling to change. They want to stay in these positions. Why do people get stuck in this feeling like they can't change and they don't want to change, yet they're so unhappy? Why does that happen?
Well, I think one of the things is like people don't realize that they can change. And so the first step is sort of like the AA thing, right? Is
Yeah.
admitting that you need to change, like something
Right.
needs to
Right.
change. Whether or not it's you or your environment or your workplace or your community, the people you spend your time with, in order to change, something needs to change. And it's far easier than most of us think. You just need to take a step in the right direction. And then another thing is most people stop learning because after you get out of school, whether it be high school or college or your graduate program, what have you, we stop committing to learning because nobody's telling us to.
Right.
You get your job out of college and you get your assignments and you pursue those assignments and you pursue the sales or the administration or the development of the creative world, whatever it is. And very little leaders are telling their people, hey, you need to read this, or you need to study this, or you need to take this course. It's you need to do this, we need to earn this, we need to reach these goals. And so most people stop reading books. They're burnt out
Right.
on
Right.
textbooks. They're burnt out on curriculum because they never had the choice. Traditional school rarely gives us the choice to pursue knowledge that we care about. It's usually knowledge to pass a test, to get a
Right.
degree,
Right.
certification.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so we stop growing because we stop learning.
Mm.
That's one of the first things. And then we also stop growing because we either stop setting goals or we never learned how to set goals. One of the things, again, in traditional schooling is that you never learn how to set goals. We get all these homework assignments and these projects, but there's never a class on how to set goals.
Right.
And in order to pursue a life of never ending growth, you've got to master the idea of how to set goals. And what I mean by that is you can set goals in all these different areas of your life. What I do each year is I set personal, professional, play, and physical goals, right? So I've got these 4 different categories where if I'm not, excelling in one area, I can certainly excel in another. So people don't set goals. And then when they do, they don't know how to set the goals well. And
Mm.
so it's really very simple. I think Brian Tracy coined this acronym, but the acronym's probably been around forever. But SMART goals, right?
Right.
Specific,
Yep.
measurable, attainable, relevant, what is it? And time-based.
Yeah.
And
Time
so
base. Yeah.
it's a simple acronym on how to set real goals, right? You can't just graduate college with a ton of debt and say, by next year, I want to be a millionaire. Of course, you're
Mm.
not going to reach that goal.
Right. Right. It has to be
You
realistic. Yeah.
can't be 100 pounds overweight and say, by next year, I want to run a marathon. You're
Right.
probably not going
Right.
to do that either. And sometimes people set these crazy goals because they're like, of course, nobody thinks I'm going to do that. So I don't have
Right.
to hold myself accountable to that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or people set too easy goals. And then, of course, you reach it and then it's time to reward yourself. And then you get in a vicious cycle.
Right.
So
Right.
that's, I think that's where most people land.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think you're right. I think the other thing is we get comfortable, right? So, I think when you're going through school and, you have teachers, professors pushing you towards, okay, and sure your goal is to graduate and get a job, right? That's your goal, if you will. And then once you do that, maybe you get married, maybe you have some children, maybe you gain 40 pounds and you get, maybe you're making a decent salary. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm stuck now in middle management, making a decent salary, 40 pounds overweight, and this is just my life. I'm gonna, watch Netflix. I'll find the latest series on Netflix and watch that. And we get these stuck in these routines. But as you mentioned, it's not that hard to pull yourself out of those routines. It's just about setting a direction, setting a goal, and then starting moving towards that goal every day, right? Having that, that discipline of having a regular routine of what you're doing, whether it's, eating healthy or going to the gym, or I'm going to read 5 books this year or what have you, or I'm going to listen to podcasts. I always encourage people, it's never been, I think this is the golden age of audio, to be honest. I mean, there's so many great podcasts that are out there where you can learn and develop and grow just by being in your car driving from
Yeah.
one place to another, right?
15
Whereas
minutes.
yeah, the old days, you probably had to, buy the tapes, buy the self-help tapes and put it
Yeah.
in your, your 8-track player or what have you. But here, you can listen to, thousands of podcasts to make you better at what you do. If you're in sales or if you're in marketing or like manufacturing like me, there's tons of podcasts out there that you can just be constantly developing and growing as you drive, run around, going to get groceries or what have
Yeah,
you,
exactly.
So it's not that, I think it's never been easier now to learn and develop on your own. But the problem is sometimes I think people is there's too many, resources, so they don't know where to
Yeah.
even begin, like
You
where
got
do
to
I
narrow
start?
your focus. That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really important. So, it's funny because I think, your story is pretty amazing. So you ended up in jail, and that's, a lot of cases we rock bottom to most people, right? And so, but you use rock bottom to come out stronger, right? To come out better, to set focus, to really learn what you wanted to be and what you wanted to do. Why do you think it takes so many people to get to that rock bottom before they say, man, I got to lose some weight, man, I got to get in shape, or man, I got to learn something, I want to get that promotion? Why do you think rock bottom is how can we encourage people not to go to rock bottom, before they start changing?
And I think to answer your first question, why does it take rock bottom, is because humans are inherently egotistical.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest thing that separates us from other animals. We have egos, and so most of us don't walk around knowing that we're very close to rock bottom.
Yes.
Um, and most of us uh, refuse to accept the fact that maybe we don't have it all together. Or
Mm,
maybe we refuse to accept the fact that our goals are misaligned. A lot of my early stage was pursuing things that did not truly bring me fulfillment. And so therefore I couldn't accomplish them. It's ironic because the early stage of my life, I was pursuing money like crazy. And
right.
the moment I reevaluate what it is I'm looking for, it's much easier to make money when you're not thinking about it all day.
Mm,
And so my values were misaligned. My ego was I was too proud to accept the fact that I was a loser and I needed
mm,
to reevaluate my long-term life trajectory. And so I think that's why not most people, I think that's why some people need to hit rock bottom to realize that life, the things that are important in life are different, and the way to accomplish them looks different.
mm.
Um, how can people avoid rock bottom? I think is also very simple. And
Yeah.
I think it's self-awareness.
Yeah.
Self-awareness for me, which more practically comes down to reading books and journaling on a regular basis.
Powerful.
Um, I'm a believer. I'm a Christian believer, so I read my Bible, and that alone it can spark a lot of humility in the life of a human being. But set the Bible aside. If you just sit and journal for 5 minutes a day and sit in your thoughts and ask yourself self-awareness questions, it can tell you where it is that you need to grow, where it is you're already excelling, who you need to apologize to, what goals you need to set, what you need to do on your calendar today, right? So those things, to answer your question in short, journaling can help most people avoid getting to rock bottom before they decide they need to change their life trajectory or shift some habits or reevaluate their values, things like that.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think of part of the challenge we live, in today's society is that we don't take that time to be quiet, right? So we're entertained 24/7. We have a computer in our hand at all times. We get in our car, we're entertained. We go home, we have, every show imaginable is now accessible on Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and what have you. So we have everything to entertain us, and entertainment is almost like alcohol. It's sort of like it's numbing the pain. Like, well, I'm going to watch a movie instead of thinking about, where I'm stuck in my career or I'm stuck in my life, right? So that those quiet times where you sit down and you're actually journaling and thinking, and that's when those, aha moments happen where you're like, really, I've got to do something different here. I got to do something. I got to change before I end up at rock bottom.
100%. And the cool thing about those moments, because I don't want to scare people if you journal, you'll realize you're close to rock bottom. But the cool things about journaling for me is I could be journaling and say, oh man, I really need to reach out to so and so and tell them thank you
Yeah.
for what they
Yeah.
did for me yesterday, right? Or journaling could be like you mentioned, like a lightning bolt idea comes to mind, and now I've got my next great idea, whether it be my business idea or something like that. Um, or of course, it could be a conviction of, man, I'm really lacking in this area, and if
Mm.
I don't change that, that could be bad for me, right? So that journaling or spending time in self-awareness practice um, provides a lot of positive incentive in the short term and the long term.
No, I agree. That's fantastic. So one of the things you talk about in the book is connecting with others, and this being a really important thing to do. Of course, in COVID, we've in a way have kind of become isolated, right? So a lot of people are working from home, they're working remotely. that we're lacking that person-to-person contact. But how can we still, build connections, grow our connections, even amidst, this pandemic that we're facing?
Yeah. And for the audience, I wrote the book prior to COVID. So there's no mention of it. However, a lot of the connections chapter does talk about virtual ways to make connections just because we're living in the digital era. However, it is a little bit more complicated these days, and I need to acknowledge that as the author of a book that didn't write about it. You have to be a lot more intentional now.
Mm,
Um, and things will change. I mean, we should be confident that over the next couple months to the next year, things will go back to normal. Like, we're not going to be wearing face masks for the rest of our lives. The lockdown's not going to last forever. But with that being said, while things are still a little bit up and down, and depends on what state you're in, of course, you have to be more intentional, right? Like, our friendships that we had prior to COVID should not fade out or
mm.
fizzle out just because we need to jump on a Zoom call. I know a handful of people that are being super creative with drinking games with their friends
Yeah,
that
yeah,
live in different states. And
yep,
so, if anything, COVID has inspired our ability to connect with people that weren't even around in the first place.
yeah,
Um, I have friends that live in different states across the country that prior to COVID, I didn't talk to as much as I would like. But now it's like, well, since we're all talking online anyways, why don't we get together and
mm.
have a Zoom happy hour, or, whatever it is, right? And so, me and a couple of different friend groups use an app called Marco Polo,
Oh
which,
yeah, yeah. My wife uses it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's basically a FaceTime app that you don't need to
Mm,
have in real time. And so it allows us to just kind of talk about our day to day and
yeah.
send a video. And then, so we're in different groups with 2, 3, 4, 5 people. And I highly recommend just staying consistent with that. But the biggest piece is being intentional, because if you're lazy about making connections or keeping up with connections, the only person that's going to hurt mostly is yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm a big calendar guy. I'm a big reminder guy. And so I use another app called Fabrique, which helps you sort of establish like your inner circle, your outer circle. It's kind of interesting. So you can put people in this thing where it reminds you to connect every 30 days,
Oh,
every
I
two,
like that. I like that.
every week.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a relational guy, but I don't have the best memory in the world.
Right.
So
Right.
I get a reminder every once in a while. Hey, text Hunter. It's been 30 days, and I'm like, thank you.
That's nice. Yeah, that's nice.
It is. It's helpful. And yeah, if some people are like, man, Jared, I bet your app told you to hit me up. I'm like, so at least I hit you up. Like,
Right. Right. Right.
um, so it's Fabrique, Fabriq. So
Okay.
Fabrique and Marco Polo. If we're gonna live in a digital era, we might as well leverage the tools that people are creating for us to flourish.
I like that. Yeah, I know for me, like when I'm driving home from work, that's my connection time. So that's when I'll reach out every day. I'm reaching out to someone else. And it's just, so you kind of going to work, I'm either listening to an audio book or I'm listening to a podcast. So I'm learning on the way in. On the way home, I'm decompressing, but I connect with others when I'm on my way home.
Yeah, I
So,
love.
and it's just something I do. It's a routine. It happens every day and it's just part of my routine. And I think making, kind of taking a little section of your calendar and have that, set in stone where you're going to reach out to people. That's not a bad thing to do. And I've been doing that for years. And it's a good way to just keep connections fresh, just reach out. How's it going? Some people are like, well, I haven't talked to this person in a while. Well, so what? Pick up the
Yeah,
phone and call them.
exactly. Because they're probably not going to call you because they're thinking the same thing that you are.
Right. So just
Um,
do it. So it might
exactly.
be uncomfortable in the beginning, but I don't know. Like, I'm a military guy, and I'll talk to somebody from that I served with, 25 years ago, and it takes about 5 minutes, and then we're best pals again, and
Yeah.
we're reminiscing about the old days, or catching
Yeah.
up and what have you. It doesn't take that long to get caught back up again. So don't
And
be afraid. Yeah.
you never know how that could change the trajectory of your life, or even
Yes.
there. And there's a couple examples that I've experienced. One, you could call that old buddy and he's going through it. And just hearing your voice,
Yep.
reminiscing on the past,
Yep.
lifts him up enough to
Yep.
to have a good night and then position himself for a good day tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Or, there's been experiences of mine where I'm reaching out to a buddy. I don't have an incentive, I don't have an agenda. but he's like, what have you been up to? And I'm like, oh, I'm working on this new project. And he's like, oh, no way. I know a friend that could help you with
Yes.
that project.
Yes.
And it's just like, I'm so glad I made this call. Like,
Yes.
now
Yeah.
I've got a new partner on a project or a new connection to help me to leverage, to grow. And so you never really know. And you don't want to create agendas, but
Right.
that's
Right.
the organic effect of just being consistent with your
Yeah.
connection.
Organic networks is really powerful. It really, I know for me, at least personally, if it wasn't for my network and, the people around me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I really do think that's important. So I think we want to get in our car and turn the radio on and, and just kind of drone out. But I think it's part we've got to reach out and, talk to
100%.
people, make those connections.
Yeah.
And it's really important for ourselves. And I think too, we live in a world where we're connected, but we're not connected, right? We're connected on social media and all these other apps and what have you, but we're actually isolated. A lot of people, like, what we see is everybody's, like people say, like, the social media is everybody's highlights, right? And you see like everybody having a great time, everybody's in great shape, everybody's deadlifting more than me, right? But at the end of the day, you're just seeing their highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
And so you're living in your blooper reel, and everyone else you're seeing is in their highlight reel. But I think it's good to talk to people, because then you can realize that, yeah, like, it took me, a month to get to that deadlift weight
Yeah.
or whatever. You
100%.
realize that there's a struggle behind that story, So I think it's important.
I agree.
Yeah. So, you know, uh, so one of the things, that when it comes to improving yourself, so, say you don't get to rock bottom, but you say, well, I got to lose some weight, I got to get in shape. So a lot of people just get, they start something and they never finish it. I see it every year. And, you're a gym guy, you've been in the gym a long time. You see it every year. It's the New Year's resolution. I'm going to get fit, get in shape. But it usually lasts, if we're lucky, 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And then people kind of go back to their comfort zone. So why does that happen? And how do we, what kind of encouragement do you give to people to get on track and stay on track?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it goes back to one, setting the right kind of goals.
Okay.
I was a trainer for a long time, and of course worked in the fitness industry for a long time, still do in a way. And people set audacious goals, right? I want to lose 100 pounds this year. I'm in
Right.
it to win it. It's like, well, let's slow down and maybe let's talk about 50 pounds this year. And that's going to be 1 pound a week on average. So don't think
Right.
about the year. Let's think about the week.
Right.
So if you lose one this week, great. You're on track. Because one a week's not very sexy. But one a week is realistic. And if you do that over a long period of time, you're going to be sexy, right?
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
you have to set specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and
Yeah.
time-based.
Time-based.
Relevant. I'm sorry,
Relevant.
is the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And time-based goals, right? So that's where you start. And then once you do, you have to have accountability.
Mm.
And when I mention accountability, you have to get the right accountability. And the best example I can think of is if you get on a diet and you go to the office tomorrow and you tell your coworker that you're always eating out with, hey, I'm eating healthy today. She or he is going to be like, sure.
Yeah.
But if you
Right.
tell your fitness friend, hey, I'm on a diet, they're going to be texting you and say,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah. How's it going?
how was
Yeah.
your eating today? Did you work out
Yeah.
today or whatever? Your pizza pal is going to be like, come on, man, one slice. Like,
Right. Right.
you got to
Right.
get the right accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that comes back to the connections, right? You got to leverage the right people in your life to help motivate you. And I'm big on social media in terms of like, yeah, social media is a highlight reel, etc. But if you post about your goals, whether or not
Oh,
anybody read it, you have to hold yourself
there's
accountable.
accountability right there. Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
someone out there that read that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Well, it's interesting. I work out every morning just during the week. I take Saturdays, Sundays off, but I've got a home gym, and I just take a picture of myself every morning. I'm like, what Tuesday reps, whatever. But it was remarkable to hear how many people see that little picture, and they're, I'm 53 years old and I'm in the gym every day at
Yeah.
5 a.m. But it's almost like a little encouragement to people that are like, wow, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And I think it's accountability, but the other thing is, like, I don't want to miss a day because people are watching that. Like, is Rennie going to post a picture this morning? Right? Is he really in the gym every morning? And I really am in the gym every morning. So I think it's good for yourself for accountability too. But I think the other thing is you don't realize, that you're impacting other people as they see that. So, I don't know how many people have said, like, man, I just, you're so dedicated, and I really look up to that. That's what I want to do. And I think we set examples for other people when we do that. And so I think so. Social media can be that, it can be a real good area for accountability as well. So I like
I
that.
agree. I
Yeah,
love that.
that's great. So how can people find out more about you, your company, and this new book?
So I've got a website, jaredgraybeal.com.
Okay.
I'm most active on Instagram. So at Jared Axel Graybeal, that's JaredAxelGraybeal. And all the company information can be found at jaredgraybeal.com. I've also got a podcast, the Business and Leadership Podcast. And then last but not least, the self-help book is on Amazon. I think it's probably next day, free shipping, all that fun stuff. So check that out on there. And yeah, that's how you find me.
Okay. So we'll put the links in the show notes for this episode, so you can check out Jared, check out his company, check out his podcast and all the things that he's doing. And the book is the Self-Help Book, 6 Practical Ways to Never Stop Growing, and exactly what we need right now. So don't sit on the couch and watch Netflix, right? Get your journal out and think a little bit about your day, right? What's working, what's not working, and make those fine adjustments so you don't end up getting to rock bottom, right?
Yeah, don't do that. Don't be
It's
like
not,
me.
it's not good. Well, very good, Jared. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for sharing all of your insight.
John, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.